Well, welcome to this special episode of The Wheelhouse, number 94. Now, Joel is not with us today, but a little bit later we will be joined by Olympian world champion on the velodrome, Kaarle McCulloch. She's going to come in and keep Joel's seat warm. But for the first time in Australian cycling history, a female has won one of the monuments, one of the great classics, Liège, Bastogne Liège, also known as La Doyenne, the Old Lady. Not to say that our winner is an old lady. Grace Brown is joining us fresh off a win in Liège. Grace, my head is still spinning from that incredible victory. Have you had a moment to even marinate in it yet?
Yeah, I think I've been soaking it up pretty well the last few days.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned shared excitement, and I think that's what a big part of the cycling community in Australia who feels like this shared experience. There are a lot of people out on the bike with you. In winning, you didn't just create history in Australia, but you beat some big names. I mean, we're talking about Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, Demi Vollering, who you can just never write off, Felisa Longo Borghini, who's had a cracker of a season. You went in a break pretty early. I want to talk about the break, but I want to ask, when you came into the sprint with that kind of calibre of rider, what was the mindset in that last corner? It's a long lead into that sprint.
Yeah, it's about 800 metres from the corner to the finish line. And I've been there before, and I know that you have to be a little bit patient, especially at the end of such a hard race. Like if you start your sprint early, then your legs just give in. So patience was the main thing. I was just telling myself, don't go until the very last moment. Yeah, even with the calibre there, like there's been races over the years where I've been in a finish with most of those riders, and I was fairly confident that in a good scenario, I could out sprint all of them. But yeah, still, you never know at the end of a race like that, especially after everything that I'd done.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I mean, you might remember a few years ago when Mathieu van der Poel got out sprinted in Flanders, and it was like the unlosable race. Everybody said, this is kind of an open shut affair, but he had no legs at the end of the race. So you're right, like you got to be in it to win it if you're there. This is a bit of, like, you've got a bit of a love affair with the old lady of Liège. Like, what's that about? You've been second there twice. You're now our first ever winner of the event, second Australian. Simon Gerrans won there a decade ago, actually, in 2014. What is it about Liège and the roads around there that seem to really work for you?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, because I think if you were to look at the race on paper, you wouldn't pull my name out of the hat as a favourite. And I guess that's why, a lot of people have said that it's a surprise victory in a way.
Who are those people? Surprise schmize, no way.
I think just like it's a hard race, and it's always attritional. There's no sitting in the wheels and getting an easy ride, even in the peloton. So I think that sort of just tough race where everyone's working hard, like, suits me.
It's over the La Redoute, you had about 2 minutes in the break. Was that planned? Did you go in thinking, if I can just get over there safely, I'll have a run in, or was it kind of fly by the seat of your pants?
It was planned to be in the break. You can't really, plan how much time the break is going to get. So, the hope was to get over La Redoute, and then to get over Rochefoucauld as well was, the next objective. But I was seeing if I could get up the road, how far that would take me, and just increase the chances of being there in the end.
Yeah, Merckxy, I reckon you had a question?
I just wanted to say congratulations, but about 7 Ks out from the finish, you had us all freaking out about that little close call. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, that was, I think I gave quite a number of people a bit of a heart attack there. My poor mum was beside herself. I was following Longo Borghini and Elise Shabby, and I just came in at a bit of a different angle to what they took, and I realised that I wasn't like quite going to make it around the corner. I think I grabbed a bit of front brake just to wash off some speed and try and like get around, but ended up doing an endo, which I thankfully saved. Still went off the road, but didn't crash myself, which is, I think, a blessing.
Yeah, I reckon that would have been one of those real bummers in your career. But I feel like at the end of your career, Grace, when you're doing keynote presentations and stuff, you can use that as a like sliding doors moment. Like the moment I did an endo and still managed to become the first Aussie to ever win this race.
Yeah, I think it's sort of in hindsight, it's a nice addition to the drama of the race. Obviously, in an ideal situation, I didn't do that, but to have that as like another hurdle that I had to overcome to be there in the finish to win just like adds to the whole ordeal.
Think of your mother. I feel like the mothers out there need a support club, you know, because they all just go through, you know, these terrible anxieties, whether watching on the television or on the side of the road. Speaking of mothers, was she the first person you called? I mean, she saw it, but to actually talk to?
Yeah, well, there is a little bit of a mothers club out there. I know that my mum speaks a lot with Amanda Spratt's mum.
Oh, that is fantastic. Lynn Spratt is like an oracle. She's like so wise now after all of the years and watching Spratty go through everything. Now, speaking slightly of mother's anxiety, the whole Spring Classics campaign for yourself, for your team, and over in the men's peloton as well, there's been so many crashes and talks of crashes and dangerous riding. You've got some pretty big goals this year. How's it been kind of muddling your way through that safely and keeping on track with all your goals?
Thankfully, I don't think the women's peloton has been quite, dangerous as the men's this year. We've seen some horrible crashes in the men's races. There have been crashes in the women's, but like not quite as many horrific ones. But it's just, I don't know, it's just something that you have to accept about the sport. Like I have big goals, you know, for the Olympics and other events in the year, but I'm not going to wrap myself in cotton wool and not race up until then, because like, I don't know, these races are part of the journey, and that's why I'm a professional cyclist, to live through the highs and lows. And yeah, if I crash and injure myself, it's just part and parcel of the journey. Like obviously I don't want to do that, but it's something that we accept to have the highs in the end.
You mentioned you've got big goals, Olympics. The Olympics is going to be really interesting. What I want to know first up, because you're like a world-renowned time trialist, and I know that you've got your eye on a sparkly piece of jewellery in Paris in the time trial. Is there something about time trial versus road race that, amongst everything you've spoken about in terms of crashes and it's unpredictable, that the time trial is maybe a little bit more predictable for you to set a big goal?
Definitely, yeah. The time trial, like, there's many more controllable variables, and we can really hone in on like improving each aspect of my race, compared to road racing where, you can do all the training to be at your absolute best for a particular race, but there's so many other elements that can either help or hinder you in a race. Just the way the race tactics play out, the technical aspect, like, you know, you could crash. You could, I don't know, mentally just things just don't click on a certain day, or that, of course, there's a mental aspect, a strong mental aspect to the time trial, but it's a little bit more black and white, just like, okay, just have to, you like deal with the pressure, you put yourself on the start line and you hurt yourself. it's like a sort of brute mental strategy rather than the more nuanced approach in a road race.
Hey, Grace, Kate wouldn't ask this question, so I'm going to do it. You get in the men's peloton, you got Tade, Mathieu, and the women's, SD Works has been dominating. How good is it to be, a giant slayer in such an important race? We love it.
It is cool. Like, I think the women's peloton has these like stars that have been around for a long time, and they're all super consistent, being up there in the pointy end of the race. And I'm, like I've had good results, but like this is by far my best result, I think. Yeah, I don't know, just like, I don't know how to answer. Like, it's just cool.
And do you reckon now, there'll be even a little bit more respect? They'll be watching out for you now, more closely?
I think in the last couple of years, I've always had a degree of respect in the peloton. Like, I've had some really top results, and people know what I can do if they sort of let me up the road or something. But I think, recently I've not been performing at that same level. So maybe, a few people thought, I'm not capable of that anymore. So they might keep a tighter leash again.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting, Grace, because Merckxy's right. I wouldn't have asked how it feels to be a giant slayer, because I guess I've been following closely along since the beginning of your days in the NRS, when you were still considered a runner on a bike rather than a bike rider. So I see you as one of the giants that people are trying to slay. It's interesting what you said about, when they let you go, maybe they underestimate you, or they have to worry if you're such a good time trialist. I used to race with a chick by the name of Zulfia Zabarova. She was unbelievable. 1996 gold medalist, Olympic champion in the time trial. She was world champion in 2002. I was in a break with her at the Giro. I was thinking, like, this is my lucky day. This is my ticket to at least a stage second, if nothing else. Anyway, about 20k to go, 30k to go, she turns around, looks at me and says, "I only ride alone." And then, boom, she just left and time trialled away to the finish. And it made me laugh because firstly I was like, okay, well, there goes my ticket to the stage potential victory. But also it reminded me that so many time trialists are really in their comfort zone in that solo break. And like, you give them an inch and they'll take a mile. When you are attacking and you're going on the hunt in these kinds of races, are you the one who really looks over your shoulder and really hopes someone's coming? Because there's those moments, right, like, oh, God, please, someone join me. Or are you kind of hoping that they just let you solo and you can get into your rhythm and do your thing?
Well, it depends. I think, maybe it depends on how far it is to the finish. Like, if I was on my own at Liège, I would have been, I would have thought this isn't a really smart place to be. It was definitely nice to have a strong group to ride with. But for sure, if it's a bit closer to the finish and you're solo, like, that's a really nice feeling to have. You don't have to stress about winning a sprint, although it's arguably more exciting to win in a sprint. Bit of both is good.
And I read that before the race you told your team you felt good and, sort of get behind it, and they did. So can you explain a bit how you feel that good before the race, how you just know you're on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a rare feeling. I guess, like, I've not felt super good for most of the season, and Amstel was a strange race. Like, I felt like I had good legs, but it was just hectic, and to try and, like, because of the neutralisation, we had the whole peloton going around the circuit in Valkenburg, and it was just hard to find the flow in the race. And then Flesh, I wasn't meant to do, but I got called in and raced. And I'm really glad that I did that race because it gave me a lot of confidence. I was away in a breakaway, even though it's not a race that suits me to win. Just like being active in the race was a real confidence boost to me, and I felt strong there. The day before Liège, I always do like a few openers just to wake up the legs, test how I'm feeling, and I just felt like I was like floating on my bike. Like I had this power to do, and I just like hardly had to push, and it was there.
Awesome.
And yeah, I think originally the plan was, we were going to support our two strong, really climbers in the team. And I was in a bit more of a support role. Yeah, I discussed with my coach and the sports directors that I just have this feeling like Liège is going to be good. I'm finally back at feeling like I'm at my top level. And yeah, if you give me the opportunity, I'll promise that I'll make it worthwhile. And they were like, okay, great. If Grace says she's on, we're going to back her. So that's really cool to have a team that is willing to change the plans based on rider feedback. So I appreciate that a lot.
It's freaking awesome. I mean, how good is that? Like that you know the day before that you're just on. And you're the kind of rider, Grace, that on a good day, most courses will suit you, and on a bad day, it kind of probably doesn't matter what the course is. It's not going to be your day. You're the kind of rider that my coach used to say, never let them leave the island. Like you move, they move, you move. You're that kind of rider. In your team, you've got some big names, but obviously Cecily's been out with a broken bum. She'll be coming back soon. Have you felt the weight of expectation from your team as you've been really elevated through? Because it sounds like when you say to them, I'm on, that they really trust you and they really back you. So how has that been navigating the spring, maybe not being, you mentioned earlier that it wasn't the best spring you've ever had?
Yeah, it's been difficult. Not every race do I have the pressure to perform, but I think particularly one of the big goals that the team had for me this year was Paris-Roubaix. And I know I had bad luck there with the puncture, but I also I just wasn't on for that day either. Before the puncture, I was already suffering. So yeah, it is really hard, I guess, dealing with when your team believes in you and you're really motivated to deliver on that, but then you're just not capable of doing it. It's quite a heavy thing to carry. And it's a bit of a, I don't know, rocking up race after race, and the team's like, okay, we're gonna support you, forget about that last race. And you think, how many more times are they gonna trust in me when I'm not delivering? But yeah, it's thankfully I have a certain sort of scope of races that suit me, that they see me as a leader, but we've got other really strong riders on the team as well that more hilly races. We've got some phenomenal climbers, and now we've got also some really opportunistic riders that are taking on races that are that maybe otherwise I would be the leader. So it's nice to have a mix.
Well, I mean, they've got to have you back now. You won, baby. Like, big one too. Yeah, very impressive ride from you, of course. And the team does get so much confidence out of that ride, but you do as well. And I've got to say, what you said about Paris-Roubaix, it wasn't just the flat, it was also that you just didn't have the best of legs. That shows immense character, you know, because there's so many people who are like, you know, shoulda, coulda, woulda, if I didn't get that flat, if this didn't happen. I reckon that's one of the biggest things about your character, Grace. I love it. Merckxy, I know you have a burning question. I keep jumping in over the top.
No, it's all good. I'm just thrilled that you're on the show, Grace. There was a good crowd too for your race, and that's because I think it's after the men's race. Do you like the idea of going after the men's instead of early in the morning?
Oh, it's definitely nice not having to set our alarms at 5 a.m. and try and get in race mode when you're still asleep. Yeah, I think like past years, I always thought Liège didn't really have like a really good fan following. Like there were never that many people on the sides of the road. And this year, like going up La Redoute, actually like most of the climbs, there was a massive crowd. And I think it's the first time ever that I've had that, other than at the Tour de France, crowds on both sides of the road, like coming in on you as you're like climbing and just like really yelling in your face and just the noise.
Epic.
It was really cool. So I'm all for the racing after the men because the fans stay. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit disappointing for Australia because it's really in the middle of the night.
You don't need to worry about us. Thank you. That's thoughtful, but don't worry about us.
You did punch cycling into the mainstream media, so well done on that, because that doesn't happen too often.
No.
That's good.
Yes, well done. Very good to see. Now, you've got some confidence through this. You've got the Aussie, as Merckxy points out, the mainstream media is paying attention. Eyeballs on Grace Brown. What does the path to the Olympics look like now? Because at the end of July, you've got 32.4 kilometres of basically incline-free tour around Paris. You go through the velodrome that was the opening ceremony many, many years ago at the Paris Olympics. So it's like a beautiful, magical mystery tour of Paris, Grace. But for you, that's your opportunity to win a gold medal that you've been chasing for a long time. What does it look like for the next couple of months to get there?
First up, I'm going to race the Vuelta next week, starting on Sunday. So, yeah, hopefully my current form continues through that week of racing. And, yeah, for the GC, I'll be supporting my teammate, but there might be a stage that I can go after there, which could be fun. And then I have a fairly quiet May. There's 2 tours, Tour de Bretagne and Tour of Catalonia that I do. And then I go to altitude in Italy and come down and race the Giro. And that will be my like build race before the Olympics, just to, bring up the form for the final kick.
It's exciting. A lot of people in Australia are very, very excited about the Olympics, I've got to tell you, Grace. Now, what was your mum's name?
Ruth.
Ruth. We are sending you all the best. I feel like Ruth needs a care package. And actually, I've got Ruth on social media. I just didn't realise that was your mum. I thought it was your auntie or something, but she is very enthusiastic. She's a very active member of the couch peloton, so that's unreal. Will you have family in Paris?
Yes. I'll have both my parents, my husband, 2 of my brothers and their partners. Some of my cousins are even showing up. So, yeah, literally anyone that's like remotely close in Europe is going to be coming to watch. So
excellent.
It's pretty cool.
Thank you so much for getting up early in Europe to chat to us. We are so behind you. All of Australia is so pumped at what you've achieved. And it's not just for now, it's a legacy that you'll carry for your whole career. So that's, something that probably when you're old and retired and on the bench with me, you'll start really realising the history that you've created. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's been nice to chat.
And Grace, it's lovely to know that we're your favourite cycling podcast too. I appreciate that.
That's an admission right there. A laugh, I'll take it.
I mean,
it wasn't a
I
denial.
assume that. Thanks so much,
Thank
mate.
you, Grace.
Legend.
Take care. That's now Remco Evenepoel and Grace Brown, who say we're the favourite podcast, Merckxy.
I mean, I kind of put her in there a bit. I don't know if she actually said that, but I'm just going to roll with it.
Hey, she didn't say no.
No, exactly.
So I'm going to take that. She's got such a good attitude. I mean, I'm all like pumped for the Paris Olympics after that. She's like laser focused.
I think from now on we do refer to her as the giant slayer.
The giant slayer.
I'm happy with that because that's what she is to me. So I love it. So cool. But hang on. I've got another legend who's just rolled into the bunker, Kate. Hang on. Keep talking.
Is Kaarle here?
Yeah, she's here.
We knew she was coming in.
I'm bringing her in.
Well, this is bloody Aussie cycling royalty. I mean, I reckon this might be one of the most stacked. Oh, here they are. This has got to be one of the most stacked episodes we've ever had. Right. We've gone from the first ever female winner of a classics to 4-time world champion, Olympic medalist, albeit on the velodrome. You're like cycling royalty. Kaarle McCulloch, welcome to the bunker.
I'm so happy to be here finally. I feel like you've been asking me for a few times, so to be here, I'm very happy.
I have. I think that's called badgering. But, you know, it got you in here. It worked.
I'm here today.
You have come direct from the Anzac Day march, the ceremony this morning?
Yeah, that's correct, in Brisbane CBD. My partner, Kevin, is a firefighter in the Air Force, so also a former Olympian in diving, actually, so very much not bikes. It was really amazing to see him march this morning, and it was quite a proud little moment, actually.
Yeah, very proud partner. Oh, that's sensational. Did you know, because it is Anzac Day here in Australia when we're recording, which is, of course, where we remember our Australian New Zealand Army Corps and everything that they have done, sacrificed and continue to do. We had a cycling battalion.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So in 1916, they had 4 different companies cycling. They mostly did drop-offs and messages and that sort of stuff. But we did lose 13 killed in action. So lest we forget not only those soldiers, but all of them. And what a rich history cycling does have. Such a beautiful, simple machine.
It really is, isn't it? And to think about that in Egypt as well, there must have been some sand in some of those bikes.
Oh, God. I like to think that they had the wide tyres. I don't know that they did. But have you ever tried to ride on a beach, like on sand, on normal tyres?
I mean, I couldn't think of anything worse. I've never tried to do it because I just think it would be horrible.
Oh, so bad. I've tried once on a mountain bike and all of these people kept going past me on the big fat tyres. I felt very ill-equipped is what I felt. We just had Grace Brown chatting to us. What a legend she was. She got a real sparkle in her eye, though, talking about the Paris Olympics. Laser focus, you know, like Austin Powers, like sharks with lasers in their eye. You're an Olympic medalist. She's got a pretty good attitude. I reckon that if ever there has been the time for Grace, this is the year.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with you there. And I've seen some of the predictive graphs, and definitely Grace is up there for one of our favourites to, you know, potentially bring home a very shiny gold medal for Australia. But definitely her form at these latest races in the Spring Classics has been fantastic and great to see her winning.
I have a bit of a question around that. When people like yourselves, you know, say someone's going to podium or win a medal, as an athlete, do you hear that stuff? Does that add to the pressure, or do you just block it out?
I mean, you don't really hear it. I think the reality is that's what you want, right? Like, nobody's going to the Olympics to come second, and so that's the one thing that you've got to remember. So, you know, I imagine that, you know, Grace has got high ambitions, as do all of our Australian Olympic cyclists heading to Paris in something like 93 days. So it's coming very, very quickly. But I think as an athlete, you do have to block it out, because at the end of the day, all you can control is your own performance. And, you know, we've spoken about Grace having a great attitude, and that's the sort of thing that makes champions. So, you know, she put that really great attitude into play, and we'll see what happens for her.
Well, now it's interesting you say nobody goes to the Olympics to not get a gold medal. I'm going to tell you a story. The second Olympics I went to in 2008 in Beijing, I was also riding professionally on the road at the time. The road course did not suit me. It literally went up a climb along the Great Wall and then down, a long procession going in. And I was on the road team simply to work. So we had reigning champion in Sarah Carrigan, was trying to defend a title, and so I was just there to work. I was definitely not there to win a gold medal. But what you say about every Olympian goes there with stars in their eyes, my cousin, he saw my name on the start list. He's a gambling man, and he was like, I know Kate, I know she's super competitive. And through my parents, he conveyed that he'd popped a bet on me for the road race and was like sitting back and going to watch live and watch his money roll in. And I had to kind of explain to him that he'd bet on the wrong horse on that day.
And if I remember correctly, that was quite a wet race, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was horrendous.
Yeah.
Actually, all it was grim dark. When you were 20 back in the peloton, you couldn't even see the front of the race. Ugh, it was miserable.
Yeah, that sounds horrible. And that's why I'm a track cyclist.
Yeah, slightly better conditions. You know what the Olympics doesn't have? It doesn't have jerseys, like world champions jerseys. We've got one here on the table. Merckxy's got one. We don't have 4 though, like you do. Are they framed? Like, what have you done with them?
Yeah, actually, my mum has all the claim to that. They're all hanging up in her library at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as all my old track suits have gone to my grandma, and my grandma lives on the same property as my parents. Every time I go home, I always see my grandma walking around in an Australian uniform.
Oh, my God, that is so good. Do you remember the old tracksuits we used to have that they sounded like a cricket when you walked, like when they rubbed together, like the polyester?
Yeah, and they were so tight, definitely not made for cyclists. And so when you would bend over in an airplane, I've definitely like split a couple of pairs.
It's the first time I got my opening ceremony garb at the Commonwealth Games in 2002 with Anna Mears. And look, we're built similarly. We've got a little bit of junk in the trunk and some considerable quadricep muscles.
Yeah.
And we tried our pants on, and the people doing the fitting were like, oh. And they said they fit all of the other athletes, and Anna and I were like, well, good for them.
Yeah.
You know what
Clearly haven't seen a cyclist.
British people think pants are, right?
No.
But British people think pants are underpants. So
Oh.
clarify. Yeah, they're true.
Trousers.
True.
Trousers.
Yeah.
Slacks.
Yeah.
So they think you...
Trucky dacks.
Well, you've just come from working for British cycling. There might have been a few awkward moments if
Yeah.
you reflect on that now. But does that mean that your nana is walking around like George Costanza in Seinfeld with like the double tracksuit on?
Yeah, pretty much.
Power
Actually,
walking?
like literally, it's like the full outfit, like even to the t-shirt. So yeah, she
impressive.
is extremely proud.
Very good. I like that. Have you seen Robbie McEwen's display that he's got at home of his
No, I
green
haven't.
jerseys? He's like created a shrine to himself.
Okay.
So when he sits in his living room bunker thing, he can just like marinate in his success.
Maybe I need to take a leaf out of his book.
You need to up it. You
Yeah,
need to
I
up
do.
it, but you
I'm
need to bring
dropping the
Nana
brain.
up.
Yeah,
I think.
actually. Yeah, well, I mean, if
To help.
Nana would definitely have that set up if she could in her house.
Oh my God, I have the funniest like Golden Girls kind of visions now. Going back to Grace Brown, we talked to her because she just made history. First woman to ever win a classic, second Aussie to ever win at Liège, Bastogne, Liège. Simon Gerrans won there a decade ago. But there's been all this talk, all this hype about the Anzacs, the Aussie and New Zealand. For the first time, we had 4 in the top 11. So we had, on top of Grace Brown, Sarah Gigante, Kimberly Cadzo, New Zealand rider, and also Neve Bradbury, who came in 11th for the Aussies. But what I noticed afterwards, speaking of the good attitude that Grace Brown has, was there was this like love fest on social media, right? So Sarah Gigante wrote on Kimberly Cadzo's page, "You're incredible, Kim. I'm so stoked for you." Grace Brown got in on it on Sarah Gigante's post. "So good to see you take on the race, Sarah." Like, it was really genuinely wonderfully supportive to see. We do have, like with the riders and the athletes, a pretty good connection with the Kiwi mob, don't we?
Yeah, we really do. And, thinking about track sprint cycling, we've got Elise Andrews, who's definitely flying the flag for the Oceania region at the moment.
Hold on. She's New Zealand. She's one of the, if she's on, she could win a gold medal on the track in the sprint. Her dad, though, so she's New Zealand. Let's clarify that. Her dad was the Queensland sprint coach.
Yep.
Does that mean we get to claim her, not just as Australia, but like Queenslanders?
Yeah, I think so.
do you think?
I think we can do that. And I know that she's spent a bit of time here in Queensland training while her dad was over here. So, yeah, I think we could definitely claim her.
Yeah, we'll claim her, especially if she's on the podium.
Oh, yeah. Bloody good. I mean, if we
Russell
claim
Crowe.
Russell Crowe and Pavlova.
Maybe
Yep.
not Mel.
I think we disowned him a little while
Moving
ago.
on. Yep.
Yeah. Well, with Grace's victory at Liège. It's the end of the classic season. We're moving on to tour season. In the men's, Tadej Pogačar, very, very dominant. Him and Mathieu van der Poel. What I want to know from your perspective, because you've been an athlete, you're now a coach. You're also deputy chef de mission for the Paris Olympics. You're still really in and about the athletes. Everyone talks about how dominant Pogačar is, what a wonderful athlete he is. You could talk that to death. He is wonderful, by the way. I do think he's probably better than Eddie Merckx. We can unpack that another day.
Yeah.
I know. But as a coach, how do you, and the athletes, how do we approach it for the athletes who are constantly finishing 2nd, 3rd, 10th in the shadows?
Yeah.
Like, it's not the same approach going into a race, is it?
No, it's not. And I think, throughout the whole of my career, I really lived in the shadow of Anna Meares. Wonderful teammate, but bloody hell, she was a great athlete. Damn it, why shouldn't it be in a different era? No, I love you, Anna. So it is a tough one. It's really challenging, and I think the sort of motto or the philosophy that I like to adopt as a coach now is I talk a lot about maximising individual potential. So even at Queensland Academy of Sport, I've got a junior boy, and if he only ever gets to win an Australian Championship as an under-19, great, like that's amazing. I'll be super pleased with that. If it's 4th, that's also amazing. So I try to really focus in on the athletes and what they can do to maximise their success. Like, what does success look like for you today? It might not be a win, it might be a 5th, and that's bloody amazing.
So going into like a match sprint, what kind of conversation do you have with an athlete where you want them to take away some degree of success, but you know that degree of success is not going to be winning, bearing in mind that I raced Kerry Mears for an Australian sprint title when we were under 13s. So in my own head, I have an answer for the conversation I had. But seriously, how do you get them to take success out of what you know is definitely not going to be, well, normal things considered, crossing the line first?
Yeah, so again, my whole philosophy centres around this, what can you do to get success in the race? So,
well, what can you do?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. So if we take Emma Finucane, right, she was world champion last year with the Great British team. I was coaching her, and she was unknown 12 months before, not really on the radar at all. We did a lot of work in the off-season on technical and skill-related things, just upping her confidence in her own abilities and things like that. And we went into the World Championships with a strengths-based approach, and we just rode the race that she could control. And if she did those things, whatever happened, happened. But that's the only thing she had control over. I don't really like to talk about the opponent. I don't really like to talk, talk the opponent down or talk about, rivalries or things like that.
Talk.
Yeah, I don't really care. And in fact, I tell the athletes all the time, I don't give a crap who you're riding against. I don't care if it's Harry Labrayson. I don't care if it's, whoever it is. I don't care. I care about you and what you're going to do and how you're going to go and race. And I've seen it have quite a lot of success, actually.
That is interesting. I spoke to Grace about it, like Mathieu van der Poel, he lost the unlosable race almost in Flanders a few years ago, came into the finish. Everybody was like, oh, this is a shoo-in for him. Got out of his seat. His legs were like jelly. Blah. Got second, and everyone went, whoa. But there are those moments, and you cannot ride your race based on their physiology or anything that they're going to do, right?
Absolutely.
So then we talk a lot about Matthew Richardson. Go, Richo. I don't know if you've seen have you seen the video where he does a backflip with the bar? Yeah. He's insane.
Amazing, yeah.
My gosh. But all things going well, he'll be riding for an Olympic gold medal, probably against Harry Lavrison. How do you go into that kind of race without talking about the opponent? Because he would have watched videos and analysed the racing. How do you kind of remove all that noise and just focus on what you can do? Yeah,
well, I mean, I guess this is where I'm going to be quite boring and put my coach hat on. I wouldn't even really look at videos of Harry. I'd be looking at Richo.
Do they? Do they look at videos?
It's a very traditional approach of how sprint is coached. It's watching videos of other riders and trying to see what you can do to negate against that. And I think it is quite important. I think it is a when you are riding for Olympic gold medal, you probably do need to consider some things. But at the end of the day, Richo's got the things that he's really, really good at. And I'd just be going in and focusing on those things. You do these things really, really well, good luck to him, as into Harry. Good luck, Harry. I'm going to do these things really, really well. See if you can get around me, or see if you can, see if I can get past you.
I send less luck to you, Harry. Less luck to Harry. You mentioned the word traditional. I'm going to pick up on that. When I say traditional, I'm trying to be very polite. It's usually referring to something that my darling mother has done. Love you, Jude. Is there a little bit of shade coming in that comment? Like, do you think that there's still a bit of an old school approach to even athlete mentality and how they approach a race?
Yes, I do. And I guess, if I can throw some like stats out there.
Oh, I do.
I love
some
it.
stats.
You like some stats?
Yeah.
Well, first I'll start with a bit of context. My background's in teaching, and I believe a coach is a teacher. And I think that is one of my superpowers as a coach. I know how to help people learn. I know how to get the best out of people. I think that is something that's really important to me. I also really understand what my philosophy is and the things that I want to get in my environment, how the culture that I want to create, and the experience I want the athletes to have had when they leave working with me. And then I also look at myself in this world of track sprint cycling, and I am like one of the only female track sprint cycling coaches in the world at the moment. And I go up on to push an athlete off the track, and a fellow coach says to me, "Oh, when are you going to get married?" I'm just like, oh my God.
Tell me they haven't asked you if you're going to have babies.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it's just, I don't really understand it. But also, like, just to throw like the statistic out to you, less than 9% of the Australian sporting workforce is women. And I don't necessarily think we need to, just put women in there just because. I'm a big advocate of making sure it's the right person doing the right job. But we talk a lot about the culture in an Australian sporting system. We talk about like needing to improve the culture. And I heard this saying the other day, women are 50% of the population. If the sky is falling down, there's a reason for that, because women have to hold up half the sky, right?
Yes.
So, I think we have to look at that in a little bit more detail and be brave enough to look at our cultures and think about how we're going to shift that. If we really, thinking about Brisbane 2032, if we really want to be successful there, we need to do some things differently.
That is so interesting. And none of this is on the rundown either, which makes it even more interesting, because what I guess I'm picking up from that is your teaching background. I loved what you said, that it's a bit of a superpower for you. You know how to get them to learn, is kind of the more caring side that female participation in that space comes with. The men and women have their different attributes, but certainly they know that from the women's side, it's a more compassionate, empathetic, carer-based. Do you think that the whole culture would change if there were more women in there, or is it more specifically about the athletes and the athletes' mentality and their welfare? Like, is it the full approach to training and everything, or is it more just about the athlete?
It's a can of worms. We probably need a whole segment for this.
I've got a can opener.
Yeah, book it in, Merckxy.
Yeah,
Lock it in.
Yeah.
We'll have a whole day on this. I'll hold you to that.
I definitely think that the nurturing side of culture comes more naturally to women. But I'll throw a little bit of a controversial statement out here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I actually think that the male athletes require a little bit more nurture than the women at times. And actually one of my mottos of operation in Great Britain with my women's team was a firm but fair approach, because you actually, and I think that's quite needed for all athletes actually. It's, you have to be quite firm with your approach, but it also has to be fair, because you have to consider things like the whole person and who they are and how they're presenting on the day. And that's also part of my philosophy, person before athlete, and actually person before staff member as well, because what I realised as a coach quite quickly is I was also responsible for all these staff members who are also like athletes themselves, also experts in what they're doing. So I was not only just in control of like 7 athletes, but also 7 or 8 other staff as well. So I think the whole idea of this culture, this athlete-centered approach that we've got at the moment, I don't actually think it's the right approach. I think that it needs to be people-focused. Like, if we get the best out of people, we'll get the best out of the athlete as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I must say that when I was an athlete, I didn't really, God, this is going to sound bad. Love you, Sutto. I didn't necessarily humanise the coaching staff in the way that I do. My perspective now shows me. I mean, it's just like when you're 15 and you think someone that's 40 is so old.
Yeah.
I think I looked at coaches from they just need to do their job and let me do my job, but they're people too. and the emotions that are involved. It's not just about the athletes, right?
Absolutely
It's
not.
about I'm going to hold you to a broader can of worms conversation about that. I've got a gavel. I can hit that anytime I need.
Oh, Judge.
Oh, yeah, Judge Judy it. Now, talking about athlete welfare, let's broaden it out a little bit, because we've just had news this week that Lorena Vibes from SD Works has signed for, I hope, a hefty sum until 2028. So that's good. And Isaac Del Toro has signed with UAE until 2029, and that makes it the longest standing contract in the men's world tour on the road. It's only 2024. That's some serious surety.
Absolutely.
And longevity, right?
It must be very nice.
Well, okay, let's explore that comment. It must be very nice.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I mean, it's great for the sport because it also means that the sponsor commitments you can assume are in place long term. So that's great. We know that it's kind of robust. For the athletes, how good. They feel valued, first and foremost. They also know that financially they're good. They don't need to worry about whether they can afford to buy spaghetti or not. They're roadies, lots of carbs. And also just from a perspective of a redundancy plan when they get injured, they know that they'll have that sort of support. Track cycling does not have that.
No, unfortunately, and it's common throughout the whole world as well. So, you basically, particularly in Australia, how it works is you get categorised each year. So you've got a year contract essentially. So if you're not meeting the standards, then you're kind of in big trouble. And also we're a results-based system as well. So you actually have to get a result at the World Championships to get your funding. And so, I have this distinct memory as an athlete of crossing the finish line with Steph Morton to win the World Championship in 2019, and us both saying to each other, A-grade funding for the year, which is, it's not great. That.
Hold on. No, that's not great. You're world champion and your first thought isn't, fuck yeah. You can blip that out, Merckxy, or put some hashtags across it. It's, thank goodness we get funding now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty tough.
That doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't. And I think that the whole funding model needs to be re-looked at all Olympic sports across Australia. And I know there are some people trying to do stuff about that. Natalie Cook is one that comes to mind, who's a Brisbane lady here.
I think everyone in Brisbane knows Nat Cook.
Yeah. So she's trying to change that narrative and to change how that's working, and I think that would be super useful. I mean, obviously at the end of the day, athletes need to perform, right? Like we're in a sport or a business of trying to win medals. So if you're not performing, there's going to be consequences.
Well, so do you think if, say, Vibes didn't get a contract through to 2028, but they sort of did it on a yearly basis for all of them and said, kind of every time you get on the bike, it better be a good one.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're in strife. Does that make you better, and does that pressure fuel you to know that you really have to get it done because literally your livelihood depends on it? Because I think it's the other way around. I think you just almost go, I'm not an animal, this is ridiculous, I'm allowed to have a bad day. Yeah. I'm screwed.
Yeah, I definitely think it definitely swings more that way for sure, because there's pressure, right? And there's already enough pressure in this. Winning is actually really bloody hard, and not many people win, right? Yeah. And so we also forget that, like there's all this talk about winning, win, Olympic gold medals, but it's actually just really, really hard. So again, like what does success look like? For some of the athletes who'll go to Paris, it might be a 10th, and that's amazing, right? And we need to be able to celebrate that as well. And that might be 10th, and then they're the best in Australia. And so how are we supporting them?
Well, look, I can tell you that one of the kids went and watched her cross country the other day. She finished approximately mid-pack, so about 20th, I reckon.
Yep.
So proud.
Oh, great.
Because, do you know where she finished last year? Last.
Oh, good on her. Progress.
Oh, progress. Yeah. So for me, actually, and I remember this acutely, talking of like career memories. When I first retired, people would say, when they found out I was an Olympian, oh, how did you go? I would always say, I only got fourth. Right?
Yeah.
Or that just makes me cringe now.
Yeah.
But at the time, in that system, your perspective is so skewed that you don't actually realise what an incredible result that is.
Yeah.
Right? being fourth at an Olympics.
Is that a media thing too? Like fourth's amazing, but we only want to talk about gold? I don't know.
It is all about medals. Like that is the business of the Olympics, right? But I think there are so many wonderful stories out there, and we can start. And social media is great in that regard. Like we can start to tell these people's stories. So there are some, like I said, there are some athletes that will go to the Olympics who might come last, but bloody hell, they might have come from some farm in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't know, raising sheep. Like
I always think the best stories are the ones often toward the back. Mm-hmm. And often in years to come, they'll be the ones at the front, but it is the story and the richness. Like there's a rider from an Emirati lady, Safia Al-Sayegh, who's riding for UAE 80Q Women. She will be the first ever Emirati woman to go to the Olympic Games for cycling.
Amazing.
Oh, honestly, if she finishes the road race because of the course and the way the Olympics always runs, I would say success and role model.
Yeah.
But that's a different story than what you might see on the results sheet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So if we think then about this week, actually, this is we used to have this segment called WTF UCI. Because there's always something. There is always something. Well, David Lepartien, my eyes are on you again. Fail.
Oh, well, he listens now.
It was lovely to meet you and have a bike ride with you, and thank you for the coffee. But notwithstanding that, David, El Presidente, I have an issue. Now, World Athletics have come out this week and said that they are going to, from their coffers, which are extensive, and I think we can assume that the UCI has some fairly heavy baggage as well, they're going to pay all of their gold medalists $50,000.
Wow.
That's World Athletics. So not Olympic, but World Athletics. And that by the LA Olympics, they want top 3 to have prize money.
Amazing.
Mr. Presidente, looking at you, has said, what a rort, ridiculous, cycling will never do this for the athletes. It's not right. It's not constitutional. He didn't say that, but you get the vibe.
Yeah.
What do you reckon? Oh, also, conflict of interest because he's the president of the French Olympic Committee. I think he's got his fingers in a lot of pies, but what do you reckon? Yes or no?
I mean, I just think that why wouldn't you want to financially reward your winners or your medalists? I think it's a fantastic initiative. And, it makes me think about there's some controversy around this Derby Wheel initiative that's trying to get up and going in track cycling. I know I don't know enough about it, but how I understand it is at the moment they're in this place where you can't have an event where the prize money is more than what you can win at Worlds. And bearing in mind, like World Championship gold medal is like on the track is something like, I don't know, 1,500 euros or something.
Hold on.
What?
Yeah. So you can't have an event. Oh, UCI, this is a whole segment for you where you win more prize money than what you win at Worlds.
Yeah. So we've got this league, and again, I don't know enough about it, but it's a fantastic initiative for track sprint cycling.
Yeah, it's called Derby Wheel. It's Ross Edgar, isn't it?
Yeah, Ross Edgar's.
Yeah, and they're trying to put together like a Kieran track sprinting league that goes around the world and involving gambling as well, kind of half picking up on the Japanese model. So it would be a game changer for track cyclists, but also entertainment because, hello, come on, people, watch our beautiful, wonderful sport. I have often printed out big sections of the UCI rules to read out ridiculous parts. Like every time it comes up, I'm like, this is the stupidest thing. I've not come across this. I'm going to deep dive into this.
Yeah, please do. Make sure I'm correct here. That's where I believe it's at the moment.
Oh, well then the cyclists have no chance.
Yeah, and bearing in mind this is track sprint cycling where the opportunity to make money is even less.
Because it's clearly not the case on the road.
Yeah.
Because they certainly don't win more at World Championships on the road than they do at the Tour de France.
Yeah.
So it's just sprint cycling. Oh, I'm coming for you, UCI. Okay, that's interesting. So you reckon it should be prize money?
Well, yeah, I think so. Like if there's an opportunity to make a living out of this sport, I think that's fantastic because there are a lot of athletes, like I said before, that won't win, right? But you could go to Derby Wheel and the way that it's set up, you could win some money or make some money. And that's how the Japanese Keirin Federation or system works, right? I was racing against 50-year-old women who that was their way that they made money.
Did they beat you?
No, they didn't.
Oh, well, hold on. And they still made money?
Yeah, they still make money because you get prize money all the way down to last place, right? Like that's how it works.
I just looked at my watch. I don't know why, but I was thinking, well, I'm 41.
Well, no joke. Like that.
So I've got 9 years to get into the Kirin and go to Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. Get in there.
And I'll win prize money.
Yep.
Even if I finish last.
Yep.
Can you hook me up?
It's pretty hard to get in. That's why they're trying to get this up and going. But yes, I think it's a great initiative.
All right. Well, the kids have like a school arrangement with a school in Japan, so maybe that's
you're in.
Maybe that's an in for me. Yeah. All right. So we reckon that there should be prize money. Merckxy, you brought up when we were chatting about this before the show that isn't Olympics meant to be non-professional? Like you've heard now what Kaarle's view is. What have you shifted?
Oh
your view?
no, I think it's a can of worms. But I just don't understand why, cycling on the track is not like swimming in Australia. Like it's two sports where they're both inside a venue. Crowd can turn up, self-contained. It's pretty cheap from a TV point of view. Mm. And Australia's got such incredible track cyclists. Like it should be a no-brainer for TV and entertainment. I don't get why there's not more coverage. I want to see track cyclists on Weet-Bix and cornflakes boxes,
So do I.
Yeah, like, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
We used to think Maddie Glaetzer would be the best, like on a cereal box.
Yeah,
like he just had that look with the big hair.
Absolutely.
And
He's
everything.
Like a model kind of vibe,
Such a nice fella.
Yeah, such a nice fella. All right. I want to keep talking about money because I've got a burning question that my missing in action co-host Joel, he just isn't that interested in talking to me about, Kaarle. So the money is on you.
Okay.
There is a bugbear that I have with your mob. And when I say your mob, I mean like the national federations and the staff behind it. There is what seems to me like this incredible arms race of technology. And instead of talking about the athletes, they're getting almost psyched out by all of these articles and reports about the new bikes out from the British team and almost like the bike is going to win the gold medal and not the athlete. I really want to know your view on this. Is the technology that important? Like, am I that old and that removed? Because I don't think I am. But do you think that I'm not seeing how critical that is versus the engine and the mentality of the athlete on the bike?
Oh, I think like when I first went into Britain, there was this fascination with the technology there. And I actually banned all technology from my group. I just said, if you can't do this on your own, you're never going to be able to do it. So I completely empathise with you. I know exactly what you're saying. The technology is important, right? You need to have a good stiff bike. You need to have a good suit. You need to, make sure your aero is okay. But here's the catch, right? If you put the good suit on but you can't hold your position, it doesn't matter what suit you're wearing, okay? So all this talk about, this package is going to make you 6% faster, I just keep thinking to myself, well, yeah, okay, maybe it will, but hang on, I know that particular athlete can't hold their position, so is that really going to work? I don't think so. So, yeah, like what I did in Britain was I removed all the equipment, get fast on your own, let's just see what you can do. And yeah, like it worked really well. And that non-fascination with it, just do it yourself, back to the basics, do the work. Yeah, it just worked really well.
It's like the old school approach for the hour record, like standard bike, drop, but like none of this fancy stuff. Like you've just got to, it's got to be about the engine.
And look, it is important to a degree, but the fascination, almost the money going into it as well is quite excessive, I would say. And if I see the difference between Australia and Great Britain, right? I've seen both, right? I know both. Yes, the equipment is good in Britain, but it's also good in Australia. The difference between Australia and Great Britain is Britain's got a very clear strategy and they're ruthless with that strategy and they make all the decisions around that strategy. I don't think we're as clear with what we want to do.
Having been on both sides, how much of the info about tech and that sort of stuff lives behind an NDA?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you. And also I don't really care, to be honest with you. But they do have an R&I team there and, they deliver the package and the package is given to the athletes. So I don't know anything about it. So, yeah, whatever they're doing, maybe there is more to it than I actually know. But from what I can see and what I know from Australia, the packages are really, really similar across the world, by the way. This is not just GB versus Australia. But what you can be guaranteed of is everybody is going to go to the Olympics with a similar package. Like it's not going to be like someone's going to have – it's not going to be like 2008, for example, where GB did have an advantage because there were still people running around on 42-centimetre bars in Beijing, right? Whereas, the British are down here on these tiny little narrow bars.
I had some of those. I've got wide shoulders. What can I say?
Well, you don't have wide shoulders. But yes, like I think like the gain that you have to make is now going to be falling back more into physical preparation. And we are forgetting that big time.
Ooh, this is another can of worms. We really are going to have a separate show diving into some of this stuff. I do think on the tech front, like it sounds old school of me, but I sort of think if you can't come close to the times on a bike from 10 years ago that's still carbon disc was like it's still good technology, then it just doesn't matter what bike you're riding. Absolutely. You're not going to win. Yeah. Like oversimplified maybe, but are they going to come for me, Carly?
No, I don't think so. Well, I mean, maybe they're going to come from me. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like at the end of the day, the engine is the two legs of the athlete, right? Or the lungs. It's not whether you've got this amazing suit or, like I said, it does make an impact, but it's not everything.
Grace said that the day before she won in Liège, she just knew she was on. She did some pre-race hit outs and was just like, oh my God, this is good. And so there was an element of confidence and satisfaction and calm when she got on the start line because she just knew that she was on. So all the things you can't control, but she just knew. When I won my world title, I reckon I knew in the first 2 laps. I had a laugh to myself. I distinctly remember having a little giggle going, oh, this is a good one. Like you just kind of know.
2 laps into what is it?
Into 100 laps. But 2 laps into the individual pursuit 2 days earlier, that I had trained for, by the way, that was my focus for that event, I knew the opposite.
Okay.
Same bike, different handlebars.
Yep.
Probably different bikes now, but they were the same back then. So
I tell you what, if I was
about the bike.
Yeah, if I was Grace Brown, I'd be much more happy at going, my physical prep, I know I'm good.
Yes.
Then I'm going to put this suit on, it's going to give me 3%.
Yes.
Because that's something that you can't control.
No. Well, and so I'm going to tell you a story very quickly. Merckxy, I'm sorry. I know that we said we'd keep this tight.
I love it.
It's just not happening. I sat down over the summer with a pro rider from Australia and he was telling me about the bikes from his team. Now, I'm not going to name and shame because I just don't think that's even the point of the story, but he's a climber and he was telling me that when they do their team bikes, handlebars, for example, if they're meant to weigh 100 grams, they'll get in a shipment of 50 of the handlebars. Some will weigh 90 and others will weigh 140. So if they don't weigh every single element of the bike, if they just build it, some will end up really significantly heavier. Now, bearing in mind this is a guy who counts calories so that he doesn't have 100 grams of extra weight on himself, his expectation then is that the bike will weigh the least amount that it possibly can. But what overwhelmed me hearing this from him was just how buried your head can get in then how much, like all of these variables that you cannot control. Like you then have to trust everybody so much and think about it. Like it really is overwhelming. Imagine looking at your mechanic and going, oh, did you make sure you weighed the left crank, the right crank, it's so much.
Did you ever have a equipment failure competing?
No, I didn't actually. I never had an equipment failure, which is pretty amazing given that I was, riding for 15, 16 years.
Well, and I also wanted to ask, I don't know if you saw it on the Today Show a few weeks ago, my first time on the boards at the Enemy's velodrome. And I heard someone, I'm not sure who it was, they said, he looks like he's a bit of a natural.
Oh, wow.
that
Yeah. So
was me.
I think it was the cameraman. So I'm thinking maybe we could get together. You could write me a program.
Yeah.
Bit of a masters.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
Let's
there's
chat.
a couple of
We'll chat after the show.
local Brisbane athletes, Peter Merckxy,
Oh, yeah.
looking at you. I reckon Merckxy's coming for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problems at all. It is good. I didn't have any big equipment failures. Alex Porter, see, there's a story of where equipment didn't help, but trying to get the very best and the biggest advantage, essentially not only ended his Olympic campaign, but kind of ended his career because he carries some scars for that. And we're big fans of Alex here at the Wheelhouse, and I'd love to see him have a comeback. He actually has a doppelganger. We'll talk about that another time. What I want to talk about as well, you've touched on it very briefly, but the cultural difference between Australia and Britain, because you've worked in both. It's really easy for us to sit here and we analyse, like Pogačar from Slovenia or Van der Poel from the Netherlands and all these different programs and approaches. But you've now got pretty first-hand inside knowledge of the difference. What's a big cultural difference that you can see? And I'm not even saying like good or bad, but like different approaches to what you would think is a standard everyday thing.
Well, I think like the first and biggest one is that they thrive in the cold and we don't.
Oh, that's interesting actually. So like in cold velodromes, they perform better? Is it that
just
simple?
In general, when they were in Adelaide for the Nation Cup, the heat was a struggle for them. So just the hot and the cold is a big difference. But in terms of like the culture, I think probably the biggest thing that I've noticed is, I think they've got a formula on how to win. And they just roll that out. They just continue rolling that out. And I think Australia knew how to win and we've forgotten how to win.
Ooh. How did we forget? Like what?
Probably from trying to look at the British and go, oh, what are they doing? And it's nothing special, to be honest with you. It's just that they're highly strategic. And I think when you're highly strategic, it means you can make really good decisions. It means that you've got a method and you can then be like really clear, for example, on your technology. Oh, these are the things that we're going to invest in. And then, you run those things really hard. And I would really like to see Australia move towards that more strategic thinking in the Australian way. I think that would be a super move in the right direction.
Making sure we have excellent camaraderie.
Yes, camaraderie. I mean, but that is a big part of being Australian, right? Like that camaraderie is super important.
We had at the Olympics, we had Peter Brock was our team mascot at the first one. He dotted around the village and just kept everybody in a good mood. He put me offside because he told me that my bike was not a very nice colour.
Thanks,
Brocky,
mate.
Come on, mate. Not impressed. I mean, he was right. He was right, but still didn't need to hear it. And then we had John Eales in 2008, went and climbed the Great Wall of China with him. Again, he was just like bouncing around. Who's going to be in Paris for the Aussies? Who does Grace Brown get to chum around with to keep her morale high?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I would be one of those people as a deputy chef de mission. So there's 5 of us on the team. Supporting Anna as the chef de mission. So I have a role to go around to some various sports and try to inspire that next generation.
What does that look like? Like over there on the ground, are you just like literally bouncing around with a big smile on your face going, you can do it?
Yeah, like to an extent. But then there's also the things like we welcome the team in. We want to really make sure that the athletes have that experience at the Olympics is always spoken about. We will exit them out of the village as well because we've got the departure within 48-hour rule now.
Oh, God, there's another can of worms.
Yeah,
we'll do that another day.
That could be also a whole show. And then, just to be a presence there for when things don't go really well, for when things do go well. So just to be that support for and that connection between the Australian Olympic team and then their sporting organisation, which there can be a disconnect sometimes, right? Because they only see the Australian Olympic team every 4 years. So we really want to make sure that they know who we are, that we're there, that we're supporting them, and that we really want them to do well, whatever that looks like.
Do you reckon, you could get me along? I could be your assistant. Kate's going. I'm keen to get over there.
Yeah. Well, I might need a deputy chef.
I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
Happy to
Sous
help.
chef, maybe.
Yeah, I can do that.
Chef. Yeah, I mean, Merckxy does like a wicked spaghetti bolognese.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Take your frying pan over, babe.
Righto.
Get some snails on the
Sweet.
side of the road.
I can do some socials, whatever.
Yeah,
Cool. We'll
totally.
talk.
All right.
Talk
We'll
after
take
this.
that offline.
Yeah.
Yes. Kaarle, thank you so much for joining us. I really am going to hold you to the deeper dives and the can of worm opening. I'll just bring a can opener.
Okay.
And I think we've got a lot more to chat about track, especially heading into Paris. Merckxy, I think that we can get you and Kaarle on the track together maybe for your next.
Yeah, I do need some pointers.
Next round.
I'd like to lift my speed, but yeah, it was super fun. But before we go, because I just wanted to point out something, Colnago, right?
Yes.
You know,
excellent. I mean, talking about excellent technology.
Well, we had the bike at the Brisbane Cycling Festival, right? Thanks to Bike Boat.
We did last week, yes.
Well, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but they have just released their results. They have tripled their turnover.
Triple it, like
Well,
it's in
wow.
3 years. Like
Yeah, over 3 years. But yeah,
Wow.
so when a lot of other bike brands have declined in their profits, so I think maybe we had something to do with that. Small part.
look, it's a bit of a timing issue. I mean, given
Just gloss over that,
but-
if you don't mind.
love it. Yes, it's got to be. And if you go to Bike Bug and you use the code Wheelhouse, you get
Yeah.
10% off one of these beautiful machines. Not insignificant, Carls.
definitely not.
When they cost around 24 grand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But just quickly, a statement from their CEO. Their mission at Colnago is to be the most desirable bicycle brand in the world. So how's that?
Well, they are beautiful bikes.
They are beautiful bikes.
We'll have to see if we can get Tom Bonin on the blower. He threw a bit of shade at Colnago.
Oh, no.
Said he would never ride one of their bikes because blah, blah, that didn't age well. You know, one of those comments
that's not
that
good. Yeah.
seems. But mind you, most of the time he podcasts, I think he's had a few beers. A lot
Very
of the comments
Belgian.
don't age well. Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us. Episode 94. We are belting toward 100 Brrr, at the speed of Kaarle McCulloch at an Olympic Games in the team sprint. We will see you next week. Like, share, subscribe, follow, share with your family, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for joining us in the Wheelhouse. Carls, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You'll be back.
I will be.
You'll definitely be back. Next time you can do the clapper
Okay.
as well.
Deal.
Okay, I'm coming in. We'll talk about the training. Thank you.
Okay, excellent.